computer-programmed reality. We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs. We would have the overwhelming impression that we were reliving the present, déjà vu, perhaps in precisely the same way, hearing the same words, saying the same words. I submit that these impressions are valid and significant, and I will even say this: such an impression is a clue that at some past time point a variable was changed, reprogrammed as it were, and that because of this an alternative world branched off.
I have to say that's one kicking little electronic techno track. If I do say so myself. Like, I could listen to a long version of that kind of really get into it. Like, I was kind of getting into it today. It's like, all right, it's going to end soon. I got to start talking. What's going on? Robert Phoenix here, broadcasting to you live and direct from the most beautiful spot on the planet. You know where that is? It's right wherever you are. That's right. That's the most beautiful spot on the planet, wherever you are. You have the opportunity to make it such. And I know life is challenging sometimes, trust me. And overlooking the great big blue Pacific Ocean on the cliffs of Big Sur makes it perhaps a little bit more beautiful, or staring down into the awesome vastness of the Grand Canyon, looking back into history and the mystery of time. Well, that can shift your perception a little bit. We can't always go there. But we can be engaged with our inner life and our inner world. And this is going to be part of today's show, a theme of today's show. And in order to get there, we have to kind of play around the fringe and the edges of the outer world so we can kind of define our target area today. So the title of today's show is Being the Change and Changing the Being. What's really important? What's important in our lives? What's important? What's important to you? And how has that importance been shifted and tilted from the inner to the outer? And what effects does that shift? What effect does that shift have upon us? So these are some of the questions that we'll be addressing today, and hopefully getting to some solid and grounded, practical, but also hopeful, optimistic, and positive answers, and yes, even solutions. All right, so let's kind of go over the world thing, and then we're going to slowly segue into the inner world thing. Apparently, once President Donald J. Trump decided to rescind the Iran deal, Israel decided it was going to have carte blanche and go after what appears to be Iranian missile sites have been set up in Syria. Who knows where the Iranians got the missiles from? They get them from China, get them from Russia. We don't know. We don't know. We don't know half of what's going on there. But we do know that Israel and Syria have been sort of crushing it against each other in the Golan Heights. I'm sorry. Yeah, it is the Golan Heights. That's where the gas and the oil is. By the way, I made a mistake on yesterday's show. Ray McGovern, CIA, not FBI. It was a very troubling scene. Watching that guy lose his shit so he could come out against Gina Haspel. I've had it with InfoWars. I don't watch it anymore. I did tune in today just to take the temperature and see what was going on. Well, the first thing I noticed was Alex Jones wasn't there. You're going to be seeing less and less of Alex Jones. And he's got some issues again with his ex-wife. He's got all these lawsuits. He's got some credibility issues that have really burst. And the credibility issues are kind of endemic of our time in a lot of ways. So there was a group of people who were like first wave info warriors. And that's when Jones was basically rolling up his sleeves, and he wasn't that famous. He was somewhat well known in Texas. He had done a couple of movies with Linklater. Both the movies he was in with Linklater were rotoscope films. So some people knew about him outside of Texas. I did. Jones came on my radar probably back around 1999, 2000, right around there. And I would cruise over. His first website was called Prison Planet, and that's where he and Paul Joseph Watson came onto the scene. And I'd go there every now and then, but I didn't go there a lot. But I tracked him. The first wave of info warriors with Alex Jones was roll up your sleeves, pretty much anything goes. And sometimes it was good and startling, and sometimes it was entertaining, sometimes it was both, and sometimes Alex was off his rocker and peddling bullshit. But it was always entertaining, and he brought up a lot of dark pieces. And that was the first wave of info warriors. So there's a group of people who kind of cut their teeth with Alex at that period and phase. And then there's like this second wave of info warriors where Alex becomes a celebrity. And that's when he starts hanging out with Charlie Sheen. He gets pretty well-known people to come on his show. Billy Corgan was kind of at the tail end of that. And Billy Corgan doesn't appear on Alex Jones anymore. And it's probably because Billy's a bit too real for Alex at this point in time. And Billy Corgan is actually really, really smart and kind of otherworldly. I like Billy Corgan. Billy Corgan knows where a lot of bodies are buried, by the way. Billy's been in rock and roll for a very long time, and not just any rock and roll. He's part of the whole grunge scene, and friends at certain points in time with people like Courtney Love, who is up to her third eye in, the crap that the swamp alligators, the reptiles are swimming in. Her name was on the Epstein list, the black book, the Epstein Black Book. Not only was she on there, but Simon Le Bon of Duran Duran. That doesn't surprise me at all. Simon Le Bon. Another celebrity, which doesn't surprise me either, is David Blaine is on that Epstein Black Book. Those are people that went to Pedo Island. Basically, the flight log. So Billy knows where a lot of those bodies are buried. Trust me. But he's also got a pretty heightened consciousness, and he's really, really come out against politically correct thinking and the social Marxist disease that has set in on this country. It is a disease, by the way. The DSM should probably recognize it at some point, but they won't. because that's a tool of the social Marxist playbook anyway. So that was like second phase Alex Jones. It was when Alex Jones started to become popular, and he was starting to really take off on the syndication. You can almost chart the rise of YouTube with the rise of Alex Jones. And don't think that YouTube doesn't know it. Alex Jones was as important as any cat video that YouTube ever published. Alex Jones helped build YouTube in a lot of ways. So we see the rise of YouTube. We see the rise of Alex Jones. Alex Jones as a celebrity, cross-platforming, hanging out with Charlie Sheen. I think at that time he was actually connecting with Donald Trump during that celebrity phase. That's probably like the first time Alex Jones came in contact with him, because Charlie Sheen and Donald Trump were friends. It also, kind of links into some of Alex Jones's other celebrity pals, including the filmmaker Richard Linklater and a few others. So he's still getting into the first wave info warrior information. But at that point, it started to become a bit more political. Now, Alex always had it out for Obama. And a lot of people had it out for Obama. I was not a huge Obama fan. The one thing that I did like about Obama is that he seemed to have an icy relationship with Bibi Netanyahu. I always enjoyed watching them in the same space together. I think if Bibi Netanyahu could have put his hands around Obama's neck, he probably would have. That's the one thing about the Obama administration I thought was A-okay. Other than that, he was an easy target, and I understand why. It's really funny. I put this up little blurb out on Facebook yesterday, which is basically the greatest bait and switch in history, has been turning the pursuit of truth and the speaking of it into a borderline hate crime, which is true. It's a great bait switch. It's a fantastic illusion and trick of the mind, trick of the collective mind that's taking place. And some interesting reactions that I got from that with people on Facebook. And one of the more interesting reactions came from my buddy who lives in Austin. Give me 1 second here. I have to clear something on my computer. Yeah, Perry Logan. Sometimes you get Perry Logan confused with Perry Ulander. Just sometimes. But Perry Ulander takes up a bigger space in my brain, so I always think of Perry Ulander first. Perry Logan is an interesting guy. I think he still lives in Austin. He comes out of being an English professor, if I'm not mistaken. He's a really smart guy. He's really funny. He's really wacky. I discovered him on Austin Public Access TV, which is, by the way, where Alex Jones got a start, and Freeman got his start as well. And I knew Perry was a Democrat and a progressive, and he had it out for people that had conspiracy theories or had alternative versions of truth. And I really didn't care, because what I liked about Perry was that he was also willing to skew his own party and his own beliefs. And Perry came out while Obama was president, and he basically was calling Obama out on his presidency and not living up or fulfilling his campaign promises, or not even really acting like a true Democrat. And whenever Perry would bring this up to people, they would accuse him of being a racist, just because Obama was black and Perry had an opinion that didn't sit well with the people that supported Obama. And Perry was absolutely 100% right. But the people around him couldn't buy into it. First of all, the racism piece is the first line of defense. That's a wall, right? People don't like what you have to say, whether it has to do with men or women or race or anything that gets too close to the bone. They'll just play that card, and then they'll shut down, summarily shut you down, and then they'll move on. And they'll feel vindicated by their moral signal. Like, look at me. I've just trumped that person. My morality is better than his or her morality because my morality is unimpeccable. It's unimpeachable. Unimpeachable. That's my morality. Look at me. Look how fucking great I am. And look at what an ignorant, hateful person that person is. And all I want to do is be around other people who are as unimpeachable as I am, who hold the same worldview, the same global position. So Perry knew exactly what he knows firsthand. When he came out against Obama, basically saying, this is not the guy that I voted for. These are not the policies that the party stands for. He's a liar. You people are being played. And he's not coming from the Republican side of things. What did they do? They shot him down, and they shut him down. And he made a number of videos that were very funny about it. So Perry knows this firsthand. And we're still Facebook friends, even though we disagree on a lot of things. Well, let's fast forward, and let's get into Alex Jones and the third wave of info warrior culture. The third wave of info warrior culture is the assimilation of a political position. And Jones always saw himself as a libertarian. Let others do what they want to do. Don't tread on me. If you're going to do that, for you personally, that's fine. Don't turn it into a social program. And by the way, I actually agree with that. I'm not totally down with all the libertarian ideas. I've studied a lot of libertarianism. I know exactly where it comes from. I know who was involved. There's this crossbreed of libertarianism with Ayn Rand, who is, in my estimation, by and large, a Satanist, a Luciferic Satanist, who later in life becomes, not by and large, but becomes a hardcore Zionist. You can see that in the transformation of Ayn Rand. You watch the interviews on YouTube. They're there, and they're difficult sledding if you believe that the fountainhead is a spiritual guide to living one's life. And you see how that gets played out in Ayn Rand's life, and you're like, oh, wait a minute. Maybe I should rethink this. Anyway, this is where Alex's beliefs were basically stemming from and coming from. And he and Ron Paul had a very strong alliance. If you could call it a political alliance, that's where it was. It was when Ron Paul was running for president. More so probably in 2008 versus 2012, right? Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Alex then takes up this position, this political position, which is backing Trump. And he sees Trump, as many on the alt-right or many of the people in the middle buried deep within the silos of the silent majority, they saw Trump as a crusader for truth and the liberty of freedom, freedom of speech, freedom to think. This is the role that Trump played for a lot of people during the primary. And I was clearly into what was going on. I love the fact that a lot of these old school, tired, retread candidates were just being steamrolled by Trump. And not just steamrolled, but being exposed. Like Marco Rubio was exposed during the primary in a huge way. Jeb Bush was exposed. Hillary was exposed. To a certain extent, Ted Cruz was exposed. Chris Christie, who is a relative of Trump, keep that in mind, Chris Christie was exposed too. Remember, he had all these little things going on with the bridge and all this other stuff. I mean, all this crap, all this dirt comes flying out of the closets when people are transitioning and trying to get the next rung up on the ladder. I liked it. I thought it was great. It was great theater. I thought it was about time. And I actually liked the fact that Trump was untying the tongues of the masses. And I think that was a really good thing. I'm all for it. And even if it was just mock and show, Trump also took time out and actually connected with people from flyover states. How he's doing with that now? Seems to me he's got a lot more interest in other parts of the world than he does in this country. That's another topic of discussion, which I may get into. But those two things alone was disrupting the old order and generating some real energy around cracking the chains, right? Cracking the chains of politically correct thinking, politically correct awareness, and to some degree identity politics was liberating. And I said this to many people, this is where the energy is. Now, you can't trust Trump. And I said that for many different occasions. Some days you'll get something good, and some days you'll get something not so good. You know, you just it's so Gemini on steroids, it's not even funny. But what's happened now is that he was so effective at catalyzing his base, or a base that hadn't been catalyzed for a long time, that he's been able to mobilize the base to a large extent to step in line and follow the marching orders, which is not necessarily a great thing in my estimation. I think every president should be able to be held accountable. And to be able to be held accountable without, here's where I think we go wrong. I mean, this is what happened with a lot of Obama people, and I think there's a certain amount of people that it's happening to with Trump, is you look at the person, you look at the process, you look at the promise, and you sign off. You sign that check, right? That check is your vote. And it's not just your vote, because when you vote, you're giving consent. You're giving consent to another person to run the show, essentially. I mean, there's a lot of consent that's already happened before that, but that's just a symbolic consent. Boom, right? Okay. When that happens, that is an energetic bond that you have with that person, no matter how strong or how tenuous. Well, he was the lesser of two evils, right? That was one version of it. Or, I really believe in him. I think he's real. He speaks to the people, and boom. And I believe that there was a very strong portion of Donald Trump that actually believed that too. Okay? A lot of people will say, well, he's just a con man, and it was, it's just a big con from he conned people here with Trump University. He's been a con man all his life, and he basically lives off of bankruptcies and loans, and he hasn't done a damn thing, and George Soros helped him build his buildings in Chicago, which is true. Right? But I actually think that Trump had a Paul on the road, a Saul Paul on the road to Damascus moment. And I do believe he saw what was going on with this country. You can see it in his chart, with all that cancer in his chart. And I believe that he set out to actually make changes. And a lot of people think that he's like this Manchurian candidate for the Zionists, or the neocons. Unless they took him out of circulation and we've got President Clone, which is possible. He's made a few trips to Camp David. Don't ever go to Camp David. Don't ever take your family on a sightseeing trip to Camp David. He's really strayed pretty far off the course. He's surrounded himself with Goldman Sachs people. He's surrounded himself with neocons and Zionists, and they're trying to get Gina Haspel as the head of the CIA now, and this is a woman who oversaw all the torture that was going on in Guantanamo. This is really not the presidency that we or people were looking for with Trump. But it's not uncommon, okay? It is not uncommon. This happens all the time. It happened with Trump. It happened with Obama. To some extent, it happened with Bush. Bush was one lucky son of a bitch, I have to say. He came in, he won the election because his family threw it. And another political family, long-standing political family, the Gores, stepped down as part of it. He had basically 2 rigged elections against subpar candidates. Well, the second one was clearly a very subpar candidate, John Kerry. Was Gore a subpar candidate? Probably. He should have won. I mean, even though Clinton had just gone through the mud and basically was a lame duck president for the last year, and all he was good for was bombing the shit out of the Balkans and creating false flags down in places like Atlanta. For all intents and purposes, Al Gore should have won. But he didn't, of course, because we know what happened in Florida. So Bush gets in, and the market crashes. Well, what do they have in the back pocket? Well, they've got the real estate bubble in the back pocket. He rides that. They ride that real estate bubble all the way for 7 years. And that real estate bubble pops just as he's leaving office. And in between then, he had, of course, 9/11 and kicking off 2 long-standing wars in terms of conflict, one in Iraq and the other in Afghanistan. So he was actually a lucky son of a bitch because he was, in my estimation, a pretty terrible president. And of course, that's when Guantanamo was turned into a terror hotel, a torture hotel, a torture resort. Come to Guantanamo, sunny Guantanamo, in the Caribbean, where you can experience world-class torture every single day on the shores of the golden sands of Cuba. But if you were really like a true Republican, like a true fiscal Republican, you didn't like Bush. You basically you pinched your nose and looked the other way, is what you did. This happens all the time with presidents. Although the first 4 years of Clinton, of course, he was extremely popular. His popularity stood with his own party for almost the entirety of his presidency, and even beyond that. So it's not uncommon for presidents to basically start screwing people once they get into office. This is what happens. And I do believe that Trump was mostly real when he set out to do what he wanted to do. Mostly. But he has chinks in his armor and he has skeletons in his closets. And if you go back and look at what happened during the election night, there was a pretty long gap between the time that the election results were in and the time they actually announced Trump as the winner. Now, they announced him as the winner, what was it, probably about 1:30 in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, West Coast time, which is very rare. I mean, how many elections have we seen, like, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, they've already got a winner, right? Happens all the time. But with Trump, there was this prolonged delay. And when I was back on Regina's program shortly after the election, one of the things that I talked about was there was a Sabian symbol that was in play at that time. And I think it was, 28 or 29 Aquarius. Let me just go in here. Let me find this Sabian symbol. It's important because I believe that this Sabian symbol was which was happening, and it determined where things were going to go in terms of the election. Let's see if I can find this thing. Give me 1 second. Hold on. Oh, this is bugging me. Give me just one moment. Por favor. Find this thing. It takes me the entire show. Oh, where was it? It was in Scorpio. Let me look at this thing here. There's a Sabian symbol that talks about men who are in positions of power making secret decisions behind the scenes. I'm going to find it. I'm going to find it before the show's over, because this is what was happening, I believe, when we had that elongated gap before they actually announced Trump was going to become president. I think a deal was being made. I think that the election could have gone either way at that point, because they have the technology, they have the machines, they can flip the votes. We've seen that on a number of occasions. So I believe, I'm going to use this word believe about 6 times. My thoughts on this is that they're in that gap, in that space, Trump made a deal. And part of the deal was not prosecuting Hillary Clinton. I think that was part of the deal. It was a big part of the deal. And that there were other pieces that were part of that deal as well. And I think we're starting to see some of those pieces come to light. So getting back to the third wave of info warrior culture, Alex Jones aligned himself with Trump, and then he began to create this sense of ultimately where we are now, polarization. And this whole idea of making America great again, which is not necessarily a bad idea. I'd like to see this country be great. I'd like to see all countries to be great, to be honest with you. Truly. I'd like them to see them all be great. Wouldn't that be great? Every single country in the world is great, and they are all great for their own individual piece that they can contribute, no matter how big or how small. Wouldn't that be fantastic? I think it would be. When he talks about making America great again, what's he really referencing? The time that America was a world trade power, which is now diminished. A time when the dollar was strong, which is incredibly shaky. You know, Iran has dumped the dollar for the euro now. The dollar is in big trouble. And this is one of the dirty little secrets that you're not being privy to. Because, of course, we have the BRICS countries, China going to the petro-yuan, using currency baskets, Iran dropping the dollar for the euro in terms of its oil exchange. So the dollar's in trouble. And there are some people who believe that these wars that we're entering into are dollar-based wars so that we can reclaim the hegemony and control of the dollar. Well, it's probably a lot more than just that. It's a pretty salient reason. It's a pretty solid reason. But here's what's happened. People have taken their power and they've given their power away. Happens all the time. Given their power away to Trump. They've given their power away to the white hats. They've given their power away to the blue avions. They've given their power away to a disembodied voice who only speaks in codes and riddles. They've given their power away. There's going to be some event in the future, whether it's the event, or whether it's the event of everybody who's on that 35,000 list of indictments, soon to be 100,000. Pretty soon the indictments will be about 1.5 million. And then you'll realize that the indictments aren't about just people running sex trafficking for 3 and 4-year-olds, 10-year-olds, whatever. No, those indictments might be for a lot more than just those people. I'm exaggerating a bit, but you have to have some exaggeration when it comes to humor. So we've gotten into this place now where everything is outside of ourselves, and I go to a lot of YouTube channels and check things out. And I was over on Sarah Westfall's channel. How come she never has me on her show? I guess I don't have something to sell. I guess I don't have some kind of salient position. Although, look, if you go back and you listen to my interviews from 2010, 2011, 2012, I'm talking to some pretty heavy people. I'm talking to James Gilliland. I'm talking to Jay Widener. Jay and I are covering all kinds of stuff. So, look, I was on this train 2011, from 2009 to through 2013, I was on this train and interviewed a ton of people, talking a lot about a lot of the subjects and topics that are being now bandied about as if they are truth. It's just weird to kind of see what's happened, right? Anyway, so I was over on her channel, and she just interviewed a dark journalist who's becoming a rather polarizing figure in some ways. And people were really going after her because she was having a conversation with a guy who was making connections between Trump and the deep state, that Trump had been a deep stater, and the deep state influence and roots had gone back a pretty significant amount of time in Trump's life. And he's looking at the connections between John Trump, the physicist, and Vannevar Bush, who was connected to the Bush family, and the connections between the Bush and the Trump families. And so he's making these claims that, hey, Trump is a deep stater. He comes from the deep state. Well, probably. If you're going to be successful, you're going to come from some region of the netherworld. You don't make it up that far unless you do. And I watched the comments on her interview. And my God, there's 400 comments. And I would say the majority were pretty positive. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for having dark journalists on your show. You're doing great work. Keep it up. Even if, the people don't see it that way. Keep questioning. Da, 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 da. And then you have the Trump supporters, which are basically linked in to the QAnon mythos. And I can't tell you how many people in that comment section said they were unsubbing from her channel because Dark Journalist was either a shill for the CIA, a leftist, and a Luciferian Satanist because of the gestures and the signals that he was making with his hands. And that they couldn't believe that Sarah fell for it. I mean, this is the world we're living in now. It's really not very good. Now, using one's discernment is all, it is an oft overused phrase at this point, but it is certainly a very, very important little piece of technology that we have inside of ourselves. But what I'm seeing here is more polarization. So it's like you have the polarization of the left and the right. We understand that because that's part of the program. But now, even inside the truth world, you have like these micro polarizations that are taking place. And then the blue Avion and Corey Good and that whole world. It's another part of it, right? More polarization. And then you throw up QAnon, and now little Jordan Sather is in the mix. Oh, and how can you question him? He's so earnest. No, he's really not saying a whole lot. He's regurgitating things that have been out there for the last 20 years, okay? But people want to believe, and they want to believe so badly. People have belief because they want relief. They want the burden of suffering. They want a form of catharsis that allows them to close chapters in their lives that are being projected onto them from the collective screen. Okay? We all have it. We all have our version of it to some degree. And sometimes it gets very personal. Sometimes we've even had these personal conflicts within our own families where one side sees one reality one way and the other side sees reality the other way. Now, I do think that there are some right and wrongs with how we view reality. That's me, okay? I have my own standards. I have things that I support and I don't support. If you've listened to my program long enough, you can probably figure out what those things are. In many cases, they are not supported by mainstream culture. And in some cases, they'll only be supported in sub-mainstream culture or the alternative news culture or even the truth culture. They won't be supported. And so what's happened is I believe we set up a dangerous precedent. And the precedent has to do with looking at things outside of ourselves. Now, this gets us back to, in a funny way, this gets us back to the New Age in some ways, right? Because the New Age was, fuck all that stuff out there. Well, just create your own reality, man. Create your own reality. Go sit on a park bench in a state of semi-induced catatonia and wait for God to wake you up. And then write a best-selling book and become a multi-millionaire. And everybody's kind of reaching for that brass ring. And it got to a point where there was oversaturation and there were teachers hanging from every, lamppost and street corner. And then it got bad. And then it got really bad. People started to die. We had the situation with James Ray, where people died in an event where he was responsible for their death, ultimately. I was reading a piece on Bettino Massaro. This is the young hotshot YouTube guru, originally from Holland. There's some interesting things to say. He's basically kind of hijacking a little bit of crazy wisdom, A little L. Ron Hubbard, a little Est, a little space alien, mythology. And he got really good at it. He got a lot of people to come over to his side, and he had these outrageous teachings in Colorado, and I think he still does. Smoke cigars, drink scotch. I think he gets high. Likes to blow up people's ideas about what a teacher is. And he had one of his students commit suicide. Because he said in one of his workshops, if you're not getting to the next level, just kill yourself. Just go kill yourself. And I understand the sentiment, but somebody took it literal because he wasn't getting to the next level. And this is the dilemma that, we're sort of facing is, again, positing the authority outside of ourselves. Whether it's Bettino Massaro or Donald Trump or, Barack Obama, this is a real problem here. And now it's gotten so bad that, you've got a bunch of people just sitting back and waiting. Just trust, have faith, have faith. Have faith in POTUS, trust in POTUS, right? Because that day's going to come. That magical moment where the deep state, whoever the fuck the deep state is, and I've got some ideas of who the deep state is, and the swamp will be drained and the deep state won't be so deep anymore. It'll be the shallow state. And all the bad boys and all the bad girls and all the perps will be behind bars. And everything will be cleaned up. And Donald Trump as Gary Cooper in High Noon saves the day, cleans up the town. And that's the mythos. That's what people want. People are looking for a savior. They're looking for something outside of themselves. Same thing happened with Bush. Oh, I trust in Bush. I trust in him. I told that story about how Bush was, working with the pastors all across the country so he could basically front load his speeches. When he did public addresses, talking to the nation, he loaded that stuff. Going to church understood what Bush was saying, and they could identify it with him, and they could sign off on him. I believe in him because he shares my belief. So one of the things that was, and I've talked about this before, that was interesting about that of a woman who's married and had a couple kids, and she was a very busy mom, and the church played a big role in her life. She could drop her kids off at the church after school, and it became kind of an appendage of the family, and allowed her to live her life and work and bring money in and keep things sustained. And when they asked her about Bush, and she said, well, he's a Christian. And knowing that he's a Christian, I can sign off on him and I don't have to worry about my president. That's one less thing I have to worry about. This is how people operate. Because it takes a lot of time and kind of a lot of personal agonization or agonizing to look at somebody like the president and then you hold up the mirror and go, this isn't really like what I signed up for. But that's how the game works. And so the MAGA crew is doing the same thing. And it doesn't matter. But it's outside of themselves, ultimately. And that's the trap. Where are the jobs? Where's the development? Where's the breaks to Main Street? Are small businesses getting tax breaks? Are small businesses getting extremely low interest loans? Are burgeoning economies, potential economies, things like hemp and CBD, are they being supported? Are they being allowed to grow and flourish? Are we giving incentives to small companies to develop technological tools? Or are we just giving tax breaks to the big players because that's how the game works? Are we incentivizing our people to be a part of the change? What is Donald J. Trump doing to share that message? One of the things that he should be sharing is, I can't do this alone. I need you. I need you to go out there. I need you to be productive. I need you to be engaged in your version of the American dream. And I'm working assiduously to help support that. And in fact, I'm going to start an American Dream Council where I've gathered 5 of the most powerful entrepreneurs in this country to serve in a way that will help foster and steward your dreams. Not steal your patents. That was another president. Your dreams. Is this coming out of his mouth? No, because we're running around trying to justify why we pulled out of the Iran deal, which still to this moment has not been fully shared with us, with the exception of some harebrained QAnon piece that Iran was going to blow up the world and start World War III, and that by Trump doing this, because he has a time machine, was able to pull out of the deal and stop it, because 10 years from now, the world would be dust and glass. That's the reasoning we're getting. I like to think that these things are true. I really do, because, man, if anybody's into time travel, it's me. I love time. I love me some time travel. But using that as a justification for pulling out of the deal is a little tenuous. Little tenuous. But it's outside. Everything's outside now. It's even outside the fucking country. Iran, North Korea, Syria. What about here? Hello? Remember this place? Come on back. Come on back. Remember us? Americans in this country? We're here. Don't forget us. He's making some countries great again. I'm not sure this is entirely one of them. But his lackeys will tell you, oh my God, oh, this winning is just so fantastic. And I was listening to Owen Schroyer today. He's talking about the Iran deal. I just I'm so over these people. I'm so over these people. They just love to throw mud. They just love to sling mud. Accusation, Schadenfreude, accusation, Schadenfreude. You're bad, you're bad, you're worse, you're worse. Ha ha you, we caught you. Like, that shit is so tiring. Yeah, there are people out there like, oh, look, we just got Joy Reid. And then on the other side, look. We just got Michael Cohen. It just goes on and on and on. It's like these gang wars, these gang hits from The Godfather, although they're bloodless. It's like these bloodless gang hits. By the way, I don't think Joy Reid lost her job. For all that screaming and finger pointing, did she lose her job? I don't think so. Apologize for somebody hacking her account. Give me a break. Ugh. This is what passes for political and spiritual currency these days. And that kind of exchange is completely bankrupt. Morally, spiritually, and emotionally bankrupt. Because we've put everything out there. What the hell are you doing? Well, you're sitting around waiting for the guy in the baseball cap to make America great again. Or Obama and his, whatever it is, okay? All right, so now here's where the show shifts. And this is about changing the being and being the change. Yesterday, I went to a working goat farm. And it's a really, really amazing experience on a number of levels. So one of the key pieces is that I went out there with a girlfriend, and we've been having a few challenges in our lives, and they're individual challenges. Like I've got challenges in my personal life that I've not shared with anybody except people that really, are in my inner circle and know what I'm going through. And she's had her own version of that. And so we're, two people that have been kind of colliding with personal change. We all know what that's like. Life is not easy. Sometimes it's messy. And when does get messy, we have to kind of take a few steps back and see how we got into a certain place. And that's a lot of what I've been doing here in Fredericksburg, among other things. So we went out there and went to go visit this goat farm. And one of the things that it did is in that moment where, we've gotten to this place where we're, being supportive with each other and trying to, build new bridges. It was a really positive experience in terms of how we were able to relate. So that part I'm really grateful for. Okay. I'm grateful for that. But there is more to it than that. And what happened is that we went out there and I met the husband and the wife, and I'll tell you the place. It's called New Love, Nulluv, New Love, and they're in Center Point, Texas. So I'm going to give them a bit of a prop here for a number of reasons. So we were introduced to the folks who run New Love, and first thing we saw was a baby, a young deer that they had adopted, and was living in their front yard for a little bit, just a little bit. On its way, just come by, get a little food, and on its way. It's not keeping the deer. It's not a personal pet or anything. It just, I think it was hurt, and they were just kind of bringing it back so they could take off and go on its way. They're just doing a humanitarian thing. The deer was not a pet. Okay, let's be clear about that. But we got to see it, right? Then we got to see the goats. And I've been into goats lately. It's a Saturn and Capricorn thing. So we're walking around and looking at the goats, and these goats were fantastic. They're pissing and shitting everywhere. But they were really gentle, and they came up to you, and there was this queen goat, and I think the queen goat was Sheba. That was her name. And the queen goat actually liked me. So I was like, I bonded with the queen goat. Once you bond with the queen goat, you're in. Trust me. All the other goats just fell in line after that. But it was great. We saw the baby goats. We saw the pygmy goats. I actually got to milk a goat. Now, why is this important? Because these people were living in Austin. They left Austin. They sold their house. They got this place, and they started to get goats. Now, Trey, who's the husband, had been around goats all of his life. He was a farmer, lived on a farm, became a builder. So he knew goats inside and out. This is an easy transition. So they decided that they were going to raise goats. Now, those goats became a cottage industry for them. And they make soaps, and they make lip balms, and they make shaving creams. You name it, if it is a personal product for use that can be derived from goat milk, they do it. They have it. It's right there, all on the land. And so we became acquainted with the goats, and then we went up to look at their little production facility. Not very big. 3 or 4 people. And they're sitting there with, a big batch of shea butter. And then they've got the various goat milks that they take from the goats 2 times a day. But then, of course, they had some lye, because you have to use a little bit of lye with soap. And then there are the soap molds. We saw it all there. We saw a person who was making the soap, a person who was doing the labeling. We saw the salesperson, and we saw Mom. Mom was working there too. So it became a family affair. And I was blown away. I was blown away because here were people that were having a symbiotic relationship with nature. And they were connecting with nature and then turning natural products, natural resources into natural products and selling them and doing a good job of it. And I thought, this is fantastic. And it was a family business. Mom was involved. The two boys that are there, they get involved. Not only that, but they have a yoga studio in town, and they're doing goat yoga in town. Of course. No, goat yoga probably won't last very long. But there's something about these goats that the only other time that I've felt something similar was when I swam with dolphins. And that was off the coast of Florida, where after I swam with the dolphins, I felt rather exalted. And when I left those goats, man, I got to tell you, I felt really good. You know, they were calm, they were gentle, they were funny. You know, I connected with them, and I felt, and you know, here's the deal. When you walk around and you're in a good state internally, like people notice that, right? Whether it's men or women, they notice that. They smile, and, you know, so my field was different after hanging out with these goats. Now, I'm not saying everybody should go become goat farmers, but what I'm sharing with you is that this is a family who had an idea for business, interfacing with nature. They're creating reality, right? They are changing their being, and they are being the change. So today's message, if there's a message for today's show, is to begin, like, we can see what's going on, and it's okay to look at it. It's okay to take a hard gaze into what's going on out there. You know, we could do it, man. If we want to, we could look at the Schumann resonance frequency. We could take in all kinds of information and filter it down. Where's the change going to manifest in your life? What good is it doing? Is it preparing you for the fifth dimension? Is it preparing you for the rapture? Is it preparing you for a dystopian post-apocalyptic world? What's it preparing you for? Where are you being led? And again, I'm not saying you shouldn't look at these things, because some of them actually have some validity. But where I want to bring it back is I want to bring it back to ground zero, and that's you. And what you can do in order to be the change. Don't put it out there outside of you. This is an example of a small family that had a few resources and decided they're going to raise some goats, and now they got a wonderful business. New Love, N-U-L-U-V, newlove.com. Go check them out and maybe support them. Because we need to be able to support people like this. There's other versions of it. It's not just goats. What can you do? How can you get engaged? How can you, change your world, create something, build something, learn something? This is where it's at. And we need to have more of this and less of the out there, right? Instead of MAGA, how about MIGA? Make yourself great again. That should be the saying. MIGA. So I wanted to give you a few ideas here to connect you into the natural world, because the natural world, I think, really holds the key for us. And there are small things that you can do. Last week, I actually went to Austin to get some stuff at Costco. And of course, I stopped at Jack Allen's. And I sat down with a couple next to me. And they have a house that's in a kind of a semi-suburban area. It's not like it's out in the country. But part of where they are is zoned for like AG or some funny zoning where they are. Anyway, they're raising chickens and ducks. And I spent probably about a half an hour asking them about chickens and ducks. They had no history of raising chickens and ducks. They weren't farm people, but now they're into it. So I wanted to just bring this to your attention. If you have a backyard, you can raise chickens, right? It's something you can do. It connects you into the natural world. It gives you eggs. Eggs, good eggs. Eggs from chickens are amazing when you just get them. They're incredible. You get to learn and care for another species. It brings you into the cycle of life. It's a small thing. So I'm going to read you 5. These are 5 things for the benefits of keeping chickens. Benefit number 1, the au naturel pest control. Fleas, mosquitoes, insects, bugs. To a chicken, that spells dinner time. Chickens absolutely love to devour all of the backyard pests that can wreak havoc on the hard work of gardens. It's a win-win. Your chickens stay well fed, and your plants get to keep growing as mature as nature intended. Okay. Fresh eggs. Hands up who doesn't like fresh eggs for breakfast. Nobody, question mark? That's what we thought, unless you're a vegan. We had to mention eggs at some point. It's an amazing perk, after all. Fresh eggs produced by well-nourished, free-ranging hens are so much better than their store-bought counterparts. Not only do you get the satisfaction and excitement of collecting them every morning, but nutritionally, they are better for your health. They have more vitamin A, vitamin E, omega-3, beta-carotene, and less saturated fat. The list of goodness goes on. Plus, by using the fresh eggs from your backyard chickens instead of buying them from the shop, you're not contributing to the factory farming industry. Chickens are often subjected to cruel conditions to produce eggs. So you can enjoy your fresh ones knowing that the chickens were able to lay them comfortably and naturally. Number 3, the best compost your gardens could ask for. Chicken litter may not sound appealing to you, but to your plants, it's heaven. All green thumbs know the value of good compost to your garden, and one of the best things you can use as fertilizer is compost with chicken litter incorporated into the mix. You could even just throw the whole coop bedding into the compost when you need to change it over. Easy disposal that turns waste into fertilizing gold. Our chicken litter compost versus synthetic fertilizer article goes into more detail about how to incorporate it into your compost and the benefits of making it naturally over using store-bought synthetics. Friends for life. Many chicken keepers love to tend their flock, not just for the tasty fresh eggs they produce, but for the company they provide. Most domestic chicken breeds form a real bond with their owners and vice versa, running up to greet them in the morning, jumping on their owners' laps for cuddles, and pottering around the garden whilst you're doing your gardening. If you're looking for an amazing pet that's sure to become part of the family, check out our Best Chicken Breeds for Families article. The benefits of keeping chickens stretch far beyond simply having fresh eggs every day, although that is a great perk. If you're thinking of getting chickens, keep in mind they can actually contribute to the health of your garden, make great pets for your children, and keep the pests at bay. There you go. There's 4 reasons to raise chickens. It sounds like a small thing, but it connects you into the cycle of life, and it changes your being. It changes your frequency. What about bees? Some people like to keep hives. Well, there's a number of benefits to growing bees. You want to know what they are? There's another connection to us in the natural world. So here's a few reasons why it's good to keep bees. Keeping bees has countless personal benefits for you and your family, starting with honey. Honey is a fascinating substance. Bees make honey out of flower nectar for use as a food source, which is then stored in the combs that the bees build. Harvesting honey is done either in late fall when the bees have filled their hive with honeycomb, or in the spring after the bees have safely overwintered and are ready to create a new food supply. Let me tell you, it is a real rush when you gently remove your first comb dripping with honey from your very own hive. But nothing compares to taking that first taste straight from the comb while it's still warm. You'll never look at store-bought honey the same way again. Honey has tremendous health benefits. Fresh honey not only tastes great, but can also be beneficial to those with allergies. The theory is that the bees are collecting pollen where you live. Eating small amounts of pollen present in local honey can actually immunize the body against the pollen so that there is a minimal irritation during allergy season. Many former allergy sufferers swear by it. However, did you know that honey also has a variety of other uses? Honey, with its antibacterial and antimicrobial properties, is currently being studied as a wound treatment, especially for burns, and has also been used for centuries as a skin and hair beautifier in recipes for face masks, shampoo, and bath oils, among other things. The highly industrious bees create a variety of other fascinating substances, including propolis, bee pollen, and royal jelly. Bees make propolis from the sticky resin found on trees. This substance is used to caulk cracks in the hive and keep out the wind and the rain and make entrances smaller or attach comb to the side of the hive. Royal jelly, the food used to nourish growing future queens, also has a powerful antibacterial property, while bee pollen is touted by many as one of the most complete foods available, with a wide range of nutrients including polyphenols, enzymes, beneficial fatty acids, free amino acids, vitamin complexes, chelated minerals, and trace elements. Do you have a garden? Beekeeping will give you legions of eager pollinators, working to make your garden yield more produce than you ever thought possible. Those are just a few of the benefits. There are more. Of course, if you wanted to go in depth, raising bees takes some time. You have to learn about it. But there are a number of people now who are in the world who will help you get your hives started. If I had a house, that's what I'd do. I'd go out and I'd buy hive stuff. And I'd start keeping bees. I'd keep bees and have some chickens. Now you got the circle of life. Isn't that interesting? Bees can pollinate the plant, pollinate the flowers, the vegetables, you name it, boom. And then they grow, right? They grow, and you got the chickens on the side. You're using their fertilizer to help them grow. The chickens eat the bad pests. The bees are the good, or the good ones. They're not pests, but they're played a vital part in that process. There's even 23 awesome reasons why you should have goats. Want me to burn through those? Goats are versatile. They can provide milk and food. They're industrious, and they're very personable. A well-trained goat can be just as sweet and fun as a dog. Goats have commercial uses. Goat's milk has smaller, less dense fat globules. Goats can tolerate more heat than other animals, such as cattle, sheep, or hogs. Goats eat a little bit of everything, including grass. Goats give milk, so you don't have to go to the store. Goats are playful. Goats are strong. Goats provide security. Goats provide cheese. Certain goat breeds provide wool. Goats can supplement your income. Goats are personable. Goats will keep your lawn weed-free. Goats can help you improve your compost pile. Goats can help you become a better steward of the environment. Goats can help you feel happier. This is what I think happened here with me. Goats are cute, funny, loving, and loyal. Similar to other pets, goats tend to cheer us up when we're blue and draw us out when we're feeling withdrawn. The small breeds like pygmies can even sit in your lap. Studies show petting an animal raises the oxytocin, the love hormone levels, and hanging with goats can lower your blood pressure. So there's something in this goat yoga thing. Goats can help promote sustainability and self-sufficiency. Goats can save you money. Goats will encourage you to get exercise through simple hard work. Goats can grow your circle of friends. Some people might not like this, but goats can serve as a meat source. And yes, that's true. Goats are friendly with other animals. So if you have chickens and goats, probably get along, although you may want to oversee that. Best practices when raising goats, right? So you'll be able to learn like best practices. There's so many things, so many potential benefits for having a couple of goats. Now, what does that mean? It means, well, you're probably going to have to move out of the city, or you're going to have some kind of home where you've got a yard that's big enough to have a couple of pygmy goats, which are small. They could chomp on your yard. But I'm just giving you some ideas here, right? Because we have to get, whether it's gardening or bees or chickens or goats or bamboo. Some people are into bamboo. I think hemp hemp should be completely legalized. People should be able to produce hemp. This is where we need to go, right? This is one way that you can take your power back, right? Become more independent, less out there, more in there. Change the being and be the change. Be the change, change the being. And it's coming back to these places where some of these ideas, create your own reality, and your energy signature is really important. And some of these things are very, very true. And I think we need to return to them. But we need to return to them with an awareness that a lot of people didn't have before. And that's the awareness of what's going on in the world. Because it makes these other things so much more vital and important. You understand why you have to do it. Not because you like it or it's fun or gives you a good feeling, but you're actually doing something that in a very, very small way can help save the world. And I know that sounds really crazy or dramatic, but I think it's true. And then what happens to you when you go through a process like that? Changes you. And those changes can manifest in many different ways. Many, many different ways. You don't even know where it will take you. You don't even know how you'll grow emotionally, psychically, spiritually. Look, there are other versions of this. And I'm just giving you some really organic, earth-centric kinds of ideas that you can incorporate in your life. But there are other things, right? You may be somebody who's really into sewing. It's like, get together with a few of your friends and start a product line and put it on Etsy. Yeah, I know, you may not become rich overnight, but it's something you can do. It's about bringing it all home. Because the out there theater right now is so volatile and so virulent and so polarizing, no matter how seductive and how captivating it is at times. And trust me, there are times I'm like, hey, well, that person sure got what was coming to them, right? Sometimes it happens. But we have to take ourselves out of this place of that kind of polarization. Let's get into the chat room and let's see what people in the chat room are talking about here. We got Judy. Let's see. Okay, Judy says, "Oh no, my very conservative family loved Bush because he was Christian." Yes, of course. And Judy put a New Love goat milk products. She put that link in the chat room if you want to go. And she says, "Check out the thumbnail photo. It's cute." Lynn says, "The best manure for your plants is from goats. It's all I use, all I drink, and make yogurt with it." There you go. Judy says, "Reminds me of the equine therapy." Yeah, I'm telling you, there's something about being connected to nature in that way that, I don't know, it kind of changes you. Changed me. At least for a few hours. All right. I think you understand what I'm talking about here. People, at some point, we're going to be oversaturated. At some point, there's going to be overload. People are not going to be able to handle all the information, especially if the information isn't having any kind of consummation. And that's why it's important, I think, to start bringing it home and bringing it in-house, as they say. Look, I'll always talk about this stuff. I'll always have some angle. I'll always try to, peel the layer back on the onion. But I think it's really, really important that we find things that we can do ourselves and then branch off and do them with other people. That, to me, is Saturn and Capricorn. That, to me, is the recipe for success. No matter where we are, no matter how much time we have left, I keep coming back to this message, right? It's kind of corny. Dance when like no one's looking and live like there's no tomorrow. Yes, of course. Of course. Sing your song, play your script, have a plan, have an idea, have a backup plan. That's not a bad thing, right? Because the shit may hit the fan. If it does hit the fan, you need to be ready. But until that day comes, you got to have a plan. Plan's important. The plan may change, may be altered, but have a plan. Live your life. Reclaim it. MIGA. Make yourself great again. All right, I'm out of here. I'll be back on Sunday nights with the live stream. We'll get into some astrology. We'll look at, I guess that'll be what, the 13th? So we'll be right on the edge of the new moon. Uranus conjunction. Oh boy. Fun times. All right. Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to say what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix, and you've been listening to today's the Friday FARcast. Friday FARcast. I'm working on a guest, by the way, hopefully for next week. Very unusual guest. Completely unusual and different. All right. Have a great week.